Okay, so let's get started. Thank you so much for joining. This is the Exploratory Online Seminar number 98. Today, I like to present how to choose color to make your charts better. Color is, like everybody use it, but it turned out like not many people actually understand how to use color, which color palette to choose. So we get these questions a lot from our users. So I wanted to share with you guys, how to choose the right color palette, how to use the color feature itself, how you can make your chart better in terms of like discovering the patterns, but also presenting it so that you can convey your insights from the data better to other folks by using the color effectively. Okay, so let me get into, let me introduce myself. My name is Kan Nishida, CEO at Exploratory. We started Exploratory 2016 to democratize data science. We do two main things. One is to build Exploratory as a tool to democratize data science by providing a UI so that more people can actually access various data science methods. Another thing we do is like something like this seminar or training so that we can share our knowledge and skill to other folks so that more people actually can use data science methods effectively. Okay, so our vision is data-informed decision-making is essential for making the world better. So therefore, like we want to democratize data science. And this is our mission. We actually do, everything we do is always based on this mission. Okay, so when we talk about data science, and it really is like kind of simple way to explain it is you usually start with a business question. You want to answer with the data. So you have to access the data. And then like usually like the data you get is not ready for visualizing or analyzing it. So you have to do the data wrangling, basically cleaning up the transforming so that you can get the data ready. And the next thing is a visualization by using the charts to find patterns in the data. And then sometimes your eyes cannot see everything. So therefore, like you need analytics to find hidden patterns and trends in the data so that you can make better sense of what's in that data. And then you go back and forth in this whole things, but then eventually, hopefully, like you can find useful insights. Then you want to actually communicate. You want to share that insights with other folks because most of the time you don't work by yourself. You work with a team. You work with the stakeholders. So you have to make better decisions as a team. So the communication is also the very essential part of the data science workflow. So Exploratory provides the modern and simple UI to do these 5 things: data access, data wrangling, visualization, analytics, and communications, all in one package. Okay, enough about Exploratory. So let's get started main theme, which is the how to choose color to make your charts better. So we have these 5 things. Hopefully, like I can pack all of them in this like 15 minutes to 60 minutes session. Starting with the common mistakes with color, and then all the way through. I like to introduce a color palette, but also like I like to introduce sort of show you how to use it, and also like not necessarily like a kind of people don't think it's as part of the colors topic, but it's actually important thing is how you can actually create groups. What way? Before you even assign the color, because without the groups, there's no point of using color, right? So I want to get into that type of topics as well. Anyway, so let's start with the common mistakes with color. There's so many mistakes in the world in terms of like using a color to visualize it. I don't, I'm not in the position of saying like this is mistakes or right or that kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's sort of like kind of I feel bad because they spend a lot of time to create the charts, but somehow the color was not used effectively. Therefore, like people actually see those charts are not really getting the kind of message, the kind of insights that like you thought you were actually conveying, right? So actually using the color is right way or like effective way is essential. And then so these are the very like sort of like a common mistakes we see often. So number one, the too many colors. Somehow like people just use it, and people like seeing a bunch of different colors. Looks kind of cool, like looks kind of interesting, but at the same time, too much noise. So you ended up like not getting anything out of it. Number two is unnecessary. Like why you almost like use the color? Like you somehow assign the color, make your chart fancy. This is the kind of same thing as the first one. But then the color is not really doing anything or not adding any extra information. But because the color is there, the audience might try to see something extra, but it's not there. Okay, so number three is a wrong color palette. There are a bunch of color palettes I'm going to explain you in a minute. But because of the wrong color palette assigned, so you kind of like not really getting important information out of the chart. Okay. So, for example, the too many colors, when you look at the charts like this, looks like a lot going on, too much noise in there, but you're not really discovering any useful insights or useful patterns, right? So what you want to do is like, I'm going to go into more detail on this one, but one thing you can quickly do is like, for example, like you want to highlight a few colors so that you can actually, hey, this is the points, this is the kind of insights that I found. So you don't have to give the equal sort of like weight of the colors to every single groups. Another thing is unnecessary. So for example, this chart, what's wrong about this chart? It's, this is okay in terms of like, maybe like you're in a presentation, it's actually nice to have a different color because you use the color to describe a certain group and stuff, then that's okay. But however, it's actually, this is like x-axis is like a market for the, whatever the sales number or something like that. And then the color is also using the market. So like x-axis, we have the 5 bars, and then like the color, we have 5 colors. Both of them are conveying the same information. So we don't really need it. So like the right side with one single color, with the blue color, is actually doing the one, basically the same job. And if anything, is because the simpler, it's actually better to convey whatever the message you want to convey. Okay. Another thing is, if you want to use a color, it's just similar to like what I already said, is like use highlight. Highlight your message or highlight your points that like your, interest or you think it's important. Okay. And the other thing is like a color palette. So for example, this chart looks okay, right? It's nothing wrong about that. Sorry for the like Japanese on the left-hand side, like axis name, but this is actually, let's say like in a bunch of like cool groups, like let's say like 9 groups or something like that. And then we have age groups. Okay, so like when you look at the legend, it's like a 10 to 20, 20 to 30 or something like that. These are the age. Okay, so it looks like, okay, like each group and in a different position, like you have like a different sort of like a ratio and stuff. But the problem is that color is assigned to the groups that actually are more like a continuous type of the groups, like 10 to 20, 10 years old to 20 years old, and it comes first, and the next group, the 20 years old to 30 years old, these actually continue, right? But in terms of the age, because it's the numbers. However, because of the color palette, this is kind of like not really doing the job. What do I mean by that? Is like, just to give you another way of like describing the same information, but with using different color. The color is like, this is a continuous. I'm going to talk about this a continuous color palette in a minute, but this would be much better. So these are the things that like is a very simple mistakes that you can actually fix it very quickly if you know it. Okay, so let's get to the next one. So before get into the color detail technique and stuff, like, let's understand the basic color palette. Okay, so mainly like we have 2 sets of color palette types. Okay, number one, the discrete, or like you call it independent. Okay, another one is a gradation. Okay, this is more like a continuous. So it looks like a color is kind of, the same type of the color, but it's just slightly different from, as you go to the next group. Okay, so these are the 2 main differences. And let's start with discrete. So, I mean, of course, the question is like, which color palette I should use, and it really depends on data type. So if you're talking about the categorical, most of the time it's actually better to just go with the discrete or independent color. The discrete or independent, the reason I say that is because each color is independent. For example, like blue and orange are independent. I mean, like it's not really, it's almost like an independent color. It's not like orange is a little bit of the blue or something like that, orange, and a sort of distinguished difference, right? So that's what I mean by that. But this screenshot is like, how about this dark blue and then light blue, like a dark orange and then light orange. Yes, those are kind of like dependent, right? Or it's almost like a brothers of parents and a child kind of thing. So that part is a little bit, but it's the main thing is blue, orange, green, red, purple. It's almost like a, independent hue or color or something. So I think that's really good for like a categorical values. So so let's look at this one. So for example, like if I create a chart, instead of using the slides, I'm gonna just go directly into Exploratory. How about that? So we have this one is like employee data. Okay, so data is each row is each employee. And then like those columns are sort of like attributes or like information about each employee. Okay. So sometimes like maybe like what is the gender, what is the education, what is the job role, what is the monthly income, and then so on. Okay. So I have already created this chart. Okay. And the x-axis is basically job role. Maybe sometimes a sales executive or a research scientist or a research director and human resource and so on. And then the height or the y-axis is the number of rows. This case, each row is employee, so like each employee, so basically the number of employees. So for example, sales executive, we have 326 employees. Okay, so now like I want to understand like what kind of education background each employee has, and if any kind of patterns among those job roles, right? So like easy thing I can do is like assign the education fields to color. And then this exploratory automatically assign this distinct or like a discrete color palette. Okay, let's take a look at that. So under the color, go to the menu, and it's the color groups and sort menu. Click on that. So this is where you can select the color palette or you can configure your color palette. Okay, so now color palette is default. It's this discrete color palette is being selected. And you can actually switch it. For example, like, like discrete is fine, but like I want to assign like a different type of color. You can do that, click on apply, and then now like you have different things, okay? And then, by the way, though, this is not directly related to the color, but if you're basically trying to find patterns in something like this, basically what I really want to do is like, hey, like a research scientist has more like a background in life science, sales executive have more background in marketing or something like that. That's the kind of information I'm looking for, right? So in that case, it's actually better to like change the y-axis values to be like a percent of total. What I mean by that, like if I select this, all the bars become the 100% basically same height. And then now I can see the ratio much better than the before, right? So for example, immediately, like I can see that human resource has like obviously like human resource background, education background. For example, sales executive has more like marketing folks, marketing background and so on. Okay. So anyway, so this is a discrete color palette, and the same thing if you create a line chart or other charts, as long as like you assign the categorical values, and then the discrete color palette gets automatically applied. Okay, you can change it to continuous, but I'm going to talk about that a little quick, but in a second. But for the categorical, most of the case, it's actually better to use discrete. By the way, so what is categorical? Just to make sure like we all understand it. So categorical is basically, you see here is like a kind of the character data type as opposed to the numerical. Okay, so not just numbers, it's actually like usually like a string or character stuff, but it's actually a categorical sort of groups. Okay, not like a continuous numbers. Okay, so let's go to the next one quickly, and then the discrete is pretty simple. Next one is the new gradation, the continuous color palette. And then this is for like more like numerical variables or values, if you will. Okay, and this one like has a slightly different variation. So let's go one by one. One is like basically like you can dissect into two groups. One is one direction, two directions. Okay, so left-hand side, one direction is basically is like there are two types of so many like a grouping here. But anyway, so the above is a single color. Next one is multiple colors. Either way, it's one direction. Basically, from starting from the left all the way to the right, and it's all continued sort of a gradation. Okay, but the single color at the above using only one hue or like one type of the color, which is blue. And it either like a lighter blue or like a darker blue. That's what I mean by single color. Second one, the multiple colors, meaning it's like the most left-hand side. I don't even know how to describe this color, maybe like a creamish color or something like that. But just for the simple sake, I call it yellow. And then just on the right-hand side, the dark blue. So basically between these two colors, like yellow and blue, it gradiates. So the center color, like around the center, is more like kind of a yellowish, bluish color. It's kind of combined, right? So, but either way, the most important part is one direction. Okay. And then, so what is a single and a multiple? Like when to use multiple, when to use single. So when you have many groups, too many groups, I'm not sure like what too many really mean, but let's say like you have 10 groups or something, okay? And then in that case, the one color gradation is actually kind of hard for like our human perception. Like our eyes are not really good at differentiate between the colors. So for example, like when you look at here under the highlighted red square, it's a blue color, right? And we have like 10 different like sort of like grays in that shades in that scale. So it's almost like hard to distinguish these three colors, right? So, and especially like when you have a bunch of bars, in this case, like we have like 9 bars, and then you try to see like, hey, what's the difference here and there? It's hard to distinguish. As then the right-hand side, which use 2 colors, right? One direction, but the 2 colors, each side has 2 different color ends. And in this case, it's easier to distinguish between the group, between these red highlighted 3 groups, right? So that's because we have 2 colors, so it's more variations in terms of the shades or gradations. So that's that's when you want to consider like using 2 colors but 1 direction color palette. But now next one is I don't know why here. Okay, so next one is not many groups, right? So this one is only 5 groups. And in that case, it's okay to be like, going to have the left-hand side, maybe like it's enough sort of like a scale to create 5 groups for the blue left-hand side. But the right-hand side does the same job. So like, basically, I'm not saying like right-hand side, which one is better or something like that, but right-hand side is actually the 5 colors. And then it's sort of like, it's 2 different compared to left-hand side. Left-hand side, like you see like from light blue to darker blue, the kind of slight difference. So that you can have the sense of like, these colors are like a continue. These groups actually continue. Right-hand side, the difference between each color is more significant than the left side. So therefore, I'm not sure, like, do you have that sense of like a continuity? If you have, that's okay. If you don't, then you might want to consider using like a left-hand side, which is like 1 color, 1 direction color palette. Okay. Another example is like, this is a map. And the map, and then apply, this is actually like, let's say, I don't know, CO2 commission or like sales numbers or whatever that could be, right? And then like using that like 1 color gradation, single color gradation. So therefore, like, when you look at this chart, our eyes tend to focus on the darker color rather than the sort of like a lighter color. So therefore, like it's sort of like it's kind of hard to distinguish, but also like how to pay attention to the lighter side of the color in this map. Especially if you are the one creating this chart, it's probably hard. But even the audience that will look at the chart you create probably won't make any attention to those like less those like a lighter color. Okay, but in that case, you might want to consider using 2 colors, right? So like because yellow and blue, in this case, both of them actually can be kind of distinguishable or be recognizable. So therefore, it might sort of like draw the attention of your audience better. Okay, so that's a kind of difference between those. And then I want to actually do try to use this one. So let's do that. Go here, and then this is like a continuous. So I'm going to use a different data set. This is the employee satisfaction survey. Okay. And then this one is like kind of numeric numbers. So this is survey data. Each row is same thing is like each employee, but we have like a response answers for each question. So let's focus on, for example, this like satisfied with current salary level in column, and then like scale is. Let's click on that one. Scale is from 1 to 10. Okay, so 10 is very satisfied, 1 is not satisfied at all. And then like creating the chart to see, okay, so let's see the bar chart. And then there is actually the age group. So 20s and 30s and 40s and so on. And then like, I'm going to assign the satisfied current salary level. Okay. And here it is, like we have like 1 to 10. And so now like the blue color is being divided into like different shades of blue, right? And then this is the one like I was talking about, like because there's too many groups. So like, can you even recognize the difference between these? Not for me. So you might want to consider using less gradation, meaning that instead of using 10, we might want to just kind of make it like 5 groups, or we can use like a 2 color gradation. Let's do that. So from this menu, go to the color. Instead of using this blue, you go down, and then here, because there's a 2 color gradation here. So for example, yellow, green, yellow, blue, and so on. Okay. So for example, like I'm gonna just let's try use that yellow, green, blue. So like a yellow, and then between is kind of like a green, and the right hand side the blue. So this one is actually not really like a 2 colors. This is like more like a 3 colors. Yes, it's because like a center has happened to be like a green because between yellow and blue, but nonetheless, it's basically the 2 color gradation. And then if I apply, and then it's like these differences are more significant than just one single blue color. Okay. So another thing though, like if I go back to the blue, right? And then why we have like a 1 to 10, and then like, can we make it like, how about like just 1, 2 is the same, and 3, 4, and one group. So divide it into just 5 groups instead of like 10 groups based on this value. You can do it. How we can do that? So right now, color by, when you click on this DISC, this means discrete numeric. Okay, so 1 is considered is very different from the 2. 2 is different from 3. That's actually discrete, right? But we can actually present this as a number. Okay, so for example here, so the difference between discrete numeric is sort of like a discrete numeric as sort of treated as category, as if 1 is the one group and 2 is another group, right? If I change that to as number, it can do the same thing with the integer as well. Then this one is now the numerical values. Therefore, exploratory create the 5 groups by default, right? It's called bucketing or creating categorizing numbers and whatever you call it. And then, so now like we have like 1 to 2 and 2.8 to 4.6 or something like that. Each this width or like a range is actually equal width, equal range width. So that's why it says equal width. So now we have 5 groups. It makes it easier to differentiate between the colors. But the problem is, what is 1 to 2.8? What that 2.8 means is like, okay, so 1 to 2, and then why 2.8 to 4.6? I mean, like this is like a survey response, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? There's no 2.8. So you can actually customize it to make it more realistic. So click on this like a green color. And then here, you can actually kind of change the way to cooking up this like groups. So right now, this is like an equal width. And then you can change that to, for example, instead of 5, I want to make it 10 groups. And then this one is actually created a 10 groups right here. But at the same time, it's not, doesn't really make sense. I want to actually do like 1, 2, 2, 3. It's more like that kind of numbers. In that case, change the equal width to equal step. Then this one is basically automatically did with basically every 2 steps or 2 numbers or 2 as a sort of like 1, 2 thing, right? So hope like you get understand it. So like in this case, I'm going to make it explicit. If I type 2, apply, and that's basically what it is. right? So like 1 and then 1, 2, and then every 2 steps and then go to the next number. So like 1 to 3 and 3 to 5 and 5 to 7. If I change that to, for example, 1, so this is like every step is like 1 to 2, 2 to 3. It's like every 1 step, right? If I change to 3 and click on apply, and then 1 to 4, because like every 3 step, all right? So in this case, I'm fine with the 2, and then I'm gonna go with that. And then this case, I get that, for example, like, okay, so this group, so for example, this is like the lightest group is 1, 2, 3. Okay, and wait a second, this is 1 to 3, and this is also 1, 3 to 5. Which though, if somebody answered like a 3, that number, those people, like which group to belong? So that is here. So this one right now includes lower edge. That means this one is like 1 to 3. That means 1 is included, but not 3.00 itself. That means it's like a 2.999 is included, but not 3.0. Next group is a 3 to 5. That means include lower edge means 3 is included, but not the 5. You can change the setting to include upper edge. If I change that, what's going to happen is upper edge is included. That means this one is not included, but 1.00001 is included. In this case, like obviously greater than 1 meaning 2. So 2 to 3. And this one is like a 3 is not included. So like in realistic, practically, this is 4 to 5. Okay, so you can change that, like which ones to be like greater than, equal to, or just greater than. This is where you want to actually change that. Another thing is, so like you can change the upper range and lower range, and then like outside the range, you can make it as a separate group. This is where you can do such setting. Okay. So that's the quick sort of like way of changing the using the continuous color palette, and then decide which color palette, 1 color or 2 colors, and how to create the color groups. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Is here. So we look at the 1 direction, but here is another one, like the 2 directions. Okay, it's almost like starting from the middle or the center, and then 2 separate ways, or 2 opposite ways the color is actually going, right? So what sometimes like a chart, we have a chart like this. This is a sales growth from a year ago by country. Okay, how much percentage it grow from a same point a year ago, and then obviously like when you look at this one, so right side, right at the center is a 0%. And then the plus side, maybe like 20%, 25%, whatever. That's actually, those are the countries grow compared to last year. And as opposed to that, the left-hand side, right? So basically like minus 20%, minus 40%, those are the countries that actually just sales decrease compared to last year. Okay. So both sides, the bars are going, but it's a kind of, different meaning, right? So in that case, this is a perfect case for like using a 2-direction gradient color palette. Okay, so right side, like I want to emphasize, these are basically sort of like a good or like a growth. Left side, that's actually a problem. Maybe like not growing. So I want to give it a different color. And in that case, basically like 2-direction color palette is the best fit. So like in this case, either way, like, which one to be the blue and red, that's actually really depends on the, your need or your sort of culture, maybe different. But, in this case, I'm assigning blue is actually good and red is actually not good, right? So let's take a look at this one too. So if I go back to the exploratory, I have this like a CO2 emission data. So I want to use that. And then here is the data. Original data has all the years starting from like 1960 to 2020 or 22 or something like that. I picked 2000 and 2020, only 2 columns. And what I want to do is like how much of the CO2 emissions have grown, have increased or decreased, right, for each country. So what I can do is basically, I don't know like why there's a maybe like there's some kind of like a no country thing. So quickly, like I'm going to remove the NA first, and then because I don't need that. And from here, what I want to do is like create calculations. And then 2020 minus 2000. And this is basically the CO2 emission change, right? That how much it's changed. And you can change this one to like a rate ratio and so on, divided by 2000. But I'm going to just go with just the real sort of raw number here. And then go to the chart. And I want to create the chart to show like which countries increase or decrease and stuff, right? So select the bar chart, x-axis country, and the y-axis is that new calculated values, okay? And if I sort it, and then obviously this one, if it's up, I mean like a higher up positive side, that means this country, right? Let's say like China has increased the CO2 emissions compared to 2000. And then for example, this country, US, has decreased CO2 emissions compared to 2000. And I'm gonna just change that to horizontal. Okay, so this much is okay. So now I want to assign the color because these are the countries that actually increase. So like I want to give that to more like, let's say, like, I don't know, reddish color. And then this side, I want to give that more like a greenish color or something, right? And then in that case, you go to the color and then assign that. And how you can do that is like at this point, you want to assign the CO2 emission. If you want to use this CO2 emission to assign a color, decide a color, red or green or that kind of stuff. Here, so like I want to assign this CO2 emission change, and then immediately you assign this a continuous color palette. So darker the color is the value is bigger, and lighter the color is value is smaller. But I want to customize this one because this one is, again, there's a center, right? Basically, if it's 0, then no increase, no decrease. So like I want to make this center as a sort of like an anchor, and then any bars going to right side to be like a different reddish color, on the left side greenish color. Okay, so first let's select the color palette. How about using this like a red, yellow, green? This is perfect. This is like a 5 thing. And then this one somehow minus side is using red, plus side green, but it should be opposite, right? So plus means more CO2 emissions. So I want to keep that like a red color. So I want to change that to opposite. So left to right, the color palette is now left to right, but I want to switch to right to left. So this one, now the green side is basically the minus side, right? So like if I apply, okay, boom, looks good, but except somehow only the China is red, but other countries, even though like they increase, somehow consider as green. That's because you see this equal width, right? So from my minimum value to max value, divide by 5 groups in equal width. So therefore, a lot of groups becomes like on this side because of red. I mean, China is huge. Okay, so there are a couple of things you can do. But here, the most thing that you want to do is like set 0 as a center, right? Because, and then, well, maybe like I should just do it now to make it easier to see. So if I change that to yes, you notice this here, yellow color is around the 0. Okay, and then from there, and then you do sort of like a dividing. So like if I click on apply, now most of the country actually fell into like the yellow zone. But nonetheless, when you see yellow, those are like a 0 center. And just because this red China is so huge, so most only the China, and then maybe the next one is what's this country here? Let's see. This is actually India. So only these 2 countries have different color. And that doesn't really make any, make some kind of sense. But I want to actually change that because China is too much. So like, why don't we make something like, for example, this is like 6,000. So that's kind of like too much. So like I want to range is to be 3,000, and then minus is 6. Apply this, and then click on that. Ooh, what just happened here? 3,000. Oh no. Upper range is apply, and then move to second, right to left. Apply. No. Left to right. Okay. sorry about that. So this one now, what's happening is color has a opposite way. So like I'm gonna change that. This one. No, this is not the one like I wanted it. Top to bottom, minus is good. And then plus 3,000. So let me just start again. Apply here, and then left to right, and minus 3,000. Why the minus is, am I doing something wrong? Right to left? I think this is the one, what we wanted. Okay, so this one is, US is, okay, sorry, I got confused. Okay, so this case in the, so we have like a 5 groups, and like, I'm not going to use this like upper lower for now, but here, like we have sort of like original values. And in this case, actually, it's not really the way like I wanted it. So another thing I could do is like change it to manual to just kind of like cut the points of like maybe from, let's say, from here, what kind of value range is this? Okay, so here, let's say like minus 500, and then let's say like 0 and 500, and maybe 1,000. And that means I just created 5 groups, and then like apply that one. And then now like we have sort of like the minus side is a green group, and then we have 2 different colors. On the plus side, you're supposed to have like 3 colors, but just because there's no country between 500 and 1,000, so ended up like only red color. Okay. Another thing you could do is this like a another thing is logical condition as well. Or like basically like I want to do this manual is fine, but how about just make it just 0? And then like create the 2 groups. And then like, like I'm going to assign just only 2 colors. And then like any countries, more than 0, assign that red color. And any country less than 0, assign that green color. And you can do that. So there are many different ways to do this. But I think important part is that using this 2-direction gradation color to present your chart to be more sort of like more intuitively understanding. Okay. So that's the 2 directions. So let's go to the next one. Where are we now? Okay, here. Okay, so now that we understand the categorical in data type, then you want to use the discrete color scale or the color palette, and the numerical data type, and you want to use the gradation color palettes, right? So how about the categorical, but it is continuous? It was kind of like kind of confusing, but there is sometimes that case. So for example, let's look at this survey data. So I'm going to use survey type, the same like survey data we look at already. And here, there's actually like another column. Basically the same information I encoded in a different way. And sometimes this might be the data that you ended up receiving, right? So for example, here is the satisfied current level type, current salary level. And then like, if I click on the information button, and then like answers 5 different types, right? So like not satisfied, absolutely not satisfied, neutral, and very satisfied, 5 groups. And then like I want to create a chart, but basically the similar way we created here. So this one, again, you remember like x-axis is the age group, and then the color is right now is like a raw sort of a score, 1 to 10. But instead, what if like you receive the answer in those categorical way, meaning instead of this color satisfies the current numerical, like you get this one, like satisfied with current salary level type. Okay. So in this case, I've already assigned the color, this like a continuous one. Like I'm going to change it back to like a default. So you ended up getting something like this. Okay. So then, okay. So like if you see like, oh, a lot of purple, that's like these people are like very satisfied. So like 40s years old employee in this company, like very satisfied with current salary level. Maybe like they give a good salary or something. I'm going to change this to 100% chart here. Okay. So there's a couple things, something wrong with this chart. One is it's actually kind of hard to understand, isn't it? Sort of because it's very satisfied. Wait a second. What's going on here? Yeah. Very satisfied, satisfied, neutral, not satisfied, absolutely not satisfied. Okay, so that's actually not bad if you are presented this way. Sometimes this position is, sometimes it's kind of like presented better. That's just 1 second. If you just create from scratch, what happened? Let's see. Color, and then very employee current salary level. And okay, here it is. So if you have something like this, and then you see not, when you look at here, not satisfied, satisfied, that's fine, neutral, but like absolutely not satisfied is here, the second from the top. But don't you want to see like in a way, like starting from absolutely not satisfied and not satisfied and neutral, satisfied and very satisfied. That order is sometimes important, right? So that's what I mean. This is a categorical groups, but at the same time, it inherently has sort of like an order, right? In an intuitive sense, based on common sense. So this one is like using the color in a different color, but it's very hard. It's like which one is, more or less kind of stuff. So what we can do is give the order to these groups. So what can we do? So basically right now, this is a character data type, but we can actually convert this to factor data type, which is basically the categorical, but it has order information in it. So what that means, so like from the column header menu, there's a menu that says set order for values and select them manually, right? And then you can actually specify which order like you want to actually put this embed into this data. So let's start from absolutely not satisfied, which is basically supposed to be lowest, right? So select that, absolutely not satisfied. And the next one is a not satisfied. And what's the next one? Neutral. And then what's next one is a satisfied. And the last one is a very satisfied. So like I have set this order, right? And then give this like information to this function called FCT read level, factor read level, resetting the level, okay, for this column. When I do this, I want you to notice the data type. Now it's changed to factor. Before it was character. Now it's factor data type. And the cool thing about this data type is actually respect the order, whatever the order you set in this data itself. Therefore, like when you go check this like information window, that order is the way we just specify. Okay. Not just that, like when you go to the chart though, that order here is not the way we specify, right? That's because this chart is still looking at the step before. So we want to move this pin to that step we just specified the order. Now, these orders are the way like we just specify, starting from absolutely not satisfied, neutral, and so on. Okay, so now from here, wait a second. I usually look at this stack bar chart looking at from the bottom, right? So I'd rather have like a low, sort of like a lowest level of the score. In this case, absolutely not satisfied at the bottom, and then very satisfied at the top. In that case, you can actually go to the chart setting, and what you could do, one thing is that here, factor level directions. If this one is like you alphabetical or like a number, that kind of stuff, when you have like a character data type or numerical value. In this case, a factor data type. Therefore, like there are two options. Default is the respecting the factor order, which is the original, the way that we specify. Reverse is the opposite way. Okay, so we can actually change that to reverse. And what is going to happen? See this? The order change. So now very satisfied at the top, absolutely not satisfied at the bottom. If I click on apply button, now here, absolutely not satisfied, and then not satisfied, neutral, and so on. So this may be like much a little bit easier to see. I'm going to change that to again percent of total. And then like you can see, okay, so this one is like very satisfied people, the purple at the top, and not satisfied at the bottom, right? So this is actually the kind of one step better. At least it's easier to see sort of like see the relationship between the colors. But still, this is the discrete color palette, right? So it's sort of like independent. It's almost like a blue and an orange. And then, sort of like we kind of know like, next one is a green. But in a real world sense, it's like, it's not green, it's like after orange, right? So it's independent. We want to give some kind of relationship among these by using the color. That's where the continuous color palette comes in. So go to the color menu. And then instead of using this discrete, because this one is basically like if you express in number, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So I want to actually bring that information, that sense into this color. So that's why I'm going to change the color palette to continuous, okay? Green or orange, whatever that is, but like I'm going to select the blue for now. And I click again. Now, when you look at here, okay, so it looks like just the blue, sort of like a single color, right? And then, but it's gradually going up. Don't you think this is much better? So like when you see like a darker color, that means more satisfied people. So when you look at this chart, any group has darker blue is more like, oh, okay, happy people, like more satisfied people group, right? So that kind of sense is coming into your eyes, more like an intuitive way. This one is one single, like you can change it to like a two color gradation as well. Another thing though is here, they're going to the color. I want to actually have the darker color at the bottom and then the lighter color at the top. In that case, you can always change this one. Okay, so this one is right now left to right. I don't know, you can change that to right to left. So now the darker color at the bottom. So it depends, like what, how you want to see it. My case, in this case, maybe like a darker blue is to be like a grumpy people. That case, maybe like I want to set that to the bottom. That's fine too. If that's the case, this is what we want to have. Okay. So anyway, so what we have done here is like we started with the character data, right? And there's no order information. So it was hard to follow this legend, but also hard to follow this color order. So we convert the data to factor data type by specifying the order manually. And then we actually changed the color palette from discrete to continuous. And in that case, now like when you look at it, and then like it's much easier to understand, or like sort of like a quickly, instantly understand what these relationship between the groups. Okay, so let's go to the next topic here. Do we really need to change use the color all the time? No, not at all. But sometimes it makes sense. So what I mean by that is like here again, so like this is like 5 different colors, but x-axis and the legend basically carrying the same information. So it's not necessary. In that case, you don't have to assign the color. Depends though, like sometimes the people prefer it for whatever the reason, like your client is asking for it. Then I'm not going to stop you from using it, but you're just trying to find patterns and stuff, and then it's not necessary. However, sometimes there's great time opportunity for assigning a color, which is basically in this chart, left-hand side, the female, right-hand side, the male. This is like an average salary or a monthly income. So, okay, so we already have that information, like x-axis, so left-hand side, female, right-hand side, male. However, sometimes it might be better to give some color so that the color helps you to sort of like intuitively understand which one is which. Right. So this one is like basically like I assign a color gender to the color by, but even better, you might want to actually bring in sort of like a real world sort of like intuitivity into the color as well. This is kind of like a cliche, but like let's say like, okay, like a male is blue and a female is pink. That might, help most of the people to quickly understand, which color, which is what, right? So in that case, you can change that color as well. How you do it is Let's go here. Let's go to the HR employee and the chart. And I'm going to just create a new chart. Here's a bar chart. And then here is a gender. And then the monthly income. And I'm going to change that to me. Okay. So in this case, I'm going to change the gender to color by. So now like automatically assign whatever the color based on the discrete color palette. And from here, you can change it, right? So like male, okay, so I want to give a light blue, and female, I want to give red color. Or no, you know what, like I want to change that to pink. In that case, you want to click on this this pencil icon here. And then like you have more options of like changing the color. So I'm going to change that to somewhere like a kind of a pink section. Where's the pink section? Maybe here. And then change that to, this looks like a pink. Okay. And it looks good. And then I'm going to go with that. And then now we have pink and blue. Okay. And this actually helps even better, especially when you have tons of charts. So for example, repeat by, I'm going to assign a job role to the repeat by. That means I'm going to have like a bunch of charts, as many as the number of the job roles. And when you look at this, and immediately it's always like, okay, this color is female, blue is male. So like I can compare which one, which side of the average monthly income is higher than the other, right? So what I want to do is like, I want to find out the difference and patterns. And in that case, I want color to help me to understand which is what. Okay, so that case, you can, these are the time that you might want to assign the color, even though like x-axis and the color, the basically carrying the same information. Okay, and here's the last topic of today. What can you do when there are too many colors? This actually happens a lot. Okay, so when this one is like a sales history trend for all these like product categories or something. There are too many colors going on. Like I have no idea what's going on, right? It's almost like this one is too much information that like almost like no information. So there are a couple of things you can do. Obviously, reduce the number of colors. Right? And then the other one is that don't use color. So let's start with the reduced number of colors. For this, I'm going to use the same CO2 emission data. There it goes. Okay, so this chart is basically x-axis, the years starting from 1965 to 2020. And then the colors, basically, each line represent each country. Okay, and then y-axis, the CO2 emission. So there are too many colors, but around here is okay, but like around this like area, what is going on, right? So depends, you know, like what are the message, what are the things like you want to convey but obviously what I want to do is like, maybe, you know, there's so many countries, this below area, I want to see, let's say, like, why don't we just focus on top 10? That's kind of like a typical thing to do. So in that case, you can actually pick top 10 countries from this color area or the country area. Okay, so from the menu, and then there's a limit values or other group, like this time let's use limit values, and then select top, and then I want to say top 10 this time. And then this is like a current Y1 column. What is current Y1 column? In this case, amount. This is CO2 emissions. And then I can go with that. And then what that is going to do is, this one is like amount sum. So for example, China, or what's the next one? The US, like sum up all the CO2 emission for each country. And then pick the top 10 countries. That's what we are seeing here. But how about, I mean, the top is cool. I mean, total is good, but I want to actually see the top 10 based on the last point of the data. That's actually kind of another very common use case, right? So I want to see the top 10 of today, or maybe the recent. And then like whatever the amounts they used to have, like I don't really care about that, but like, you know, I want to see the trend, you know, are increasing or decreasing, that kind of stuff. So in that case, I want to say like this current Y1 column or amount basically do the same thing, because the amount is assigned to the y-axis. But here is a set position. If I click on that, and then like I can say like this is the first or the last. If I select the last, that means it's gonna do the evaluation based on the values here. Okay, so click on apply, and you see maybe like slightly different combination because these are the top 10. So before we do this, we had like maybe like 100 lines, right? But all the lines below here will disappear. So now we have the top 10 countries based on the values at the last point, which is 2020. And from here, still this one is I think this is much better in terms of that, I mean, compared to the original, but that's one way to do it. This is top 10. And the other way to do is I'm not going to have enough time to do it, but the others group, which is basically you can select which group to keep, and then all the rest of the group to combine to create one group called others. So that's sometimes like you might want to look into that as well. Other things though, like this is what I do often is like, I'm going to just remove this limit setting. So get back to like a crazy bunch of line charts. Okay, a bunch of lines. Okay, so I want to see like this country, like China is obviously super increasing. And then like US is actually not that increasing, right? So like I want to pick a couple countries and highlight it and then see like, compared to others. So that case from the menu, and then there's a menu called highlight. And if this one is open the same color configuration dialog, except the color palette is highlight. That means if you open this dialog from the color menu, but you can select the highlight from the color palette, which basically does the same thing. Okay. The difference of this color palette is that it sets the default color. And then it really up to you which group that should have any color of your pick. So in this case, I want to say like a China to be red, and the US to be maybe blue, and maybe Japan to be orange. I'm going to assign just 3 countries, and all other countries, I want to keep it like a light gray. And then click on apply. And then now this one is basically showing, okay, so this is like one country is going up, and then like a blue US is here, and then like Japan is here. So I want to see like, okay, like some countries are increasing, some countries decreasing. So that's the message you want your audience to grab. And I think this highlighting is better. And obviously it's not really for yourself, but sometimes you create the charts to convey your message to others. So highlight is a great way to do that. And by the way, though, when you do the highlight, here is like a China, US, and Japan is right here. And then therefore, Japan is right here. Go back to the highlight setting. You can change this position. So if you click on this and apply, then whatever the highlighted countries will be shown at the top. This is actually useful sometimes. And if you're, whatever the highlighted country is kind of way down in the scroll bar. So in that case, you want to have those countries showing up at the top. Okay, so that's a little tip. Okay, so next one, so this one is a highlight, and then the last not least is the separate, right? So I'm going to remove this highlight again. Okay, and then like I want to see more countries, but it's just more like for each special focus on each country. In that case, basically you don't have to use color to separate. You can use literally separate the charts, right? So I'm going to assign this country to repeat by. And what's going to happen is because there's so many groups, so like it's going to, I think in total 79. So it can create 79 charts, but it might take some time. I mean, like 10 seconds or something. So I want to limit to top 20 in this case. Okay. And then these are the top 20 countries. Like now we have that. And then obviously, this is only the China. You can see the differences and other countries. It's kind of hard to see, but that's okay. And then at this point, you don't really need a color. Either way, let's remove the color and then something like this. And then you can change that top 20 setting. Remember bottom 20 or whatever the conditions, you can apply that as well. Just for the easier sake, just limit to the top 10 for now. Actually. And then this case, each chart, all the charts share the same scale. And then because of China, most of the charts, it's kind of like it's hard to see the changing. So I'm going to remove the sync Y axis so that each chart has its own scale on optimized scale for the y-axis. And this one gives me a better idea of like which country is increasing, which country is actually decreasing, right? So, and I'm going to click on the fit, and then, oh, it's already all the charts are fit in that one screen. Okay. So this is another way. This ended up like not using the color, but all you wanted to do is to separate the lines. Then you don't have to depend on the color. You can actually use the repeat by to separate into different charts. Okay. All right. I think that's it for today. So basically what we have done today is, like starting with like, what is the color palette and what's the difference among different types of color palettes, and when to use, how to use. And also, like, as kind of related to that is before even using the color palette, how you want to create the groups, maybe equal, especially for numerical values, like equal widths or every equal step, or maybe like you can manually cut, various ways to create the groups. Then you want to bring in the color palette, either discrete or continuous. If it's numerical, it's better to use a continuous color palette. But sometimes even like a categorical variable, but that category has sort of like its own order, like a small, medium, large, or something like that. In that case, you might want to consider bringing in the continuous color palette. It really, at the end of the day, it really depends. Like, can you understand it intuitively? Like, is color helping you to understand that or discover the patterns and the trend in the data, or helping your audience to understand your point of your message? And I think that really that's what really matters. Okay, so there are always exceptions, but I hope you can get a kind of a basic idea of like how to use the color effectively to make your chart better. Okay, so we have released recently like Exploratory 8.0. We are actually releasing the 8.1 patch today. So please go to the exploratory.io, and then under that, there's a download menu and then Exploratory desktop. And when you go there, and then you can click on the download button for Windows and Mac, depends on like your PC. Also, another thing is that we are doing data science booster training in November 13th to 17th. This is like 5 days, but each day is 2 hours. So in total, 10 hours. So this one is to help you understand the benefit of various data science methods, what they are, when to use them, and how to use them. And use various data science methods to gain useful insights from the real world data to make data-informed decisions. And also communicate your discovery with others effectively. For that, you want to understand at basic level of like how each analytics or way of algorithm work. So we're going to cover that as well. And then what is the point that you want to communicate? Especially when you do the statistical analysis or something. There is no sort of prerequisite. You want to actually bring in your curiosity and then your desire to learn something new. Okay, this is a schedule from Monday to Friday. Each day, like I said, it's 2 hours, and then starting from data basic to data visualization, data wrangling, how to transform and prepare the data, and then getting into the various data analysis methods, starting from correlations to prediction model to clustering and text analysis, and then the time series forecasting. And right now, we are doing an early bird discount period. So like by end of September 30, if you enroll before that, then you can get 10% discount off. If you happen to be a student studying at the school currently, then you can get early bird plus student discount, which is 50% off. So make sure if you're interested in apply before September 30. And you can find that information from the Exploratory's website. So let's just go here. This is exploratory.io. And then go to Learn, go to the training seminar. And then here we have online seminar information. When you go to this seminar page, and you can see the future schedules as well as the past recording as well. You go to the training here, when you click on this button, then you can see more detailed information about our data science booster training. Okay. And I think that's it. And then if you're an Exploratory user, make sure check out like how to tutorials, how to video, and chart gallery under the Learn menu. Today, like I talked about a factor data type that I have done the past seminar in the past, so you can find the video tutorials as well. And also on the YouTube, check out the Khan August. I post not just a seminar or this type of seminar, but also we started doing like a this week's data. So those types of information, like I directly upload to the YouTube. So you might want to check it out as well. Okay. Otherwise, if you have any question, always feel free to reach out to me at khan@exploratory.io. And we have the Twitter or X account called Exploratory Data. That's where like we make announcements for products and then releases and issues and then all those information. So please follow. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining today's seminar. We're going to do another session next week, so please stay tuned. Otherwise, have a great rest of the week. And again, thank you so much for coming and hope to see you soon. Bye.